So today is August 30th, 2023. My name is Caroline Nguyen, and I'm with the Houston Asian American Archive. And today I'll be talking with Native Houstonian Tina Khatri, who is the Vice President of TDK Construction Company. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to talk with me. So to begin with, could you please tell me your full name and place of birth?
Sure. My full name is Tina Dhansukh Khatri, and I was born in Houston, Texas. And thank you for having me here today.
Yes. And how do you identify ethnically?
Ethnically, I'm Asian American, and more specifically, Gujarati and Hindu.
Awesome. And as a native Houstonian, can you tell me where in Houston you were born and what the area was like where you grew up?
So I was born at Memorial Hospital, which is at Beltway and I-10, but we grew up in Harvest Bend, which is 1960 in Winford. So that's kind of in the northwest side of town. When I was born, my parents were not very well off, so the neighborhood was a little rough. You know, there was always like robberies, and our house was getting egged all the time. But from there, we transitioned, slowly into nicer neighborhoods. But that's how I initially started.
That's great. And can you tell me what your family was like as you grew up?
So I have one sister. She's 8 years older than me, Bhakti Khatri. And when growing up, my mom was working 2 jobs. My dad was working out of town a lot. So, everybody was really busy. So my sister, even though she was only 8 years older than me, spent a lot of her time raising me and, taking me places and taking care of me when I was a young kid. But then on the weekends, we would all spend time together. But, we're a small family, so that's pretty much, us.
Yeah. And were you the youngest sibling?
Yeah. So there's just 2 of us.
Yeah.
2 of us, 8 years apart.
So, did your parents have any cultural values that they tried to instill within you, or as you grew up?
Yeah, so growing up, we went to a lot of Indian functions, and we'd go to the temple, we'd celebrate Diwali. We'd go to this thing called Garba, where it's everybody goes and dances with the sticks, and it's huge. Everybody from Houston goes there, everyone in the Indian community. So we would do that. We would wear Indian clothes. We grew up speaking Gujarati in the house. My mom always cooked Indian food, which she still does to this day. To this day, she sends food for me and my sister and my husband, and we're always eating Indian food. But so the Indian culture was, really within us throughout the time that we grew up, and still in me now. Yeah.
That's awesome. Do you have any particular moments from those events that you find really memorable?
Well, growing up, since my dad was, I mentioned, was out of town for work a lot. He was working as a superintendent at a big job, but he was, they were like, hey, your job is here, whatnot. So one of my fondest memories is my dad taking me to Baskin Robbins, and I still remember which one it was. It was the one on 1960 and Jones Road. It's not there anymore. And taking me to IHOP for breakfast on the weekends whenever he could. And so that's just one memory that I really have of my childhood, my parents, other than going to these events and stuff.
Moving on, could you tell me more about your early educational experience, like elementary, middle school, or high school?
Yeah. So when I went into elementary school, I was in ESL, English Second Language. I didn't know any English. And I was kind of a very, very, very shy kid. So from a lot of what I remember from my childhood was a little, I felt like I was a depressed kid. I was very shy. I was I don't know anybody. I was scared to talk to people. I'd cry every day. I'm I don't want to go to school. And I just felt I got bullied a lot. And also I grew up in the north side where most of the Indian community, especially at that time, lived in Sugar Land and in the south side, which is still true to this day. But at that time, there was barely anybody in the area that I lived in. So I kind of felt like an outcast. My sister was 8 years older, so we were never in the same school. And so I kind of just felt a little lonely growing up. And then as I went into junior high, you know, I still was like, okay, I start making a little bit of friends, but I still always got bullied. And not until high school did I feel like, okay, now I'm starting to feel like I fit in and stuff like that. So the childhood years, especially when it comes to school, it's very difficult for me. So when I think about it, it makes me a little sad, because I was like, I felt like I was somewhat of a sad kid just growing up, and not because of anybody else, just because, you know, I always was like scared of going to school and stuff like that. But as time went on, I feel like it got better, especially during high school. I was able to branch out, make new friends and stuff like that, so.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you remember the names of any of the schools you attended?
Yeah, so elementary was post-elementary. Junior high, so I went to Dean for one grade, which was 6th grade, I think, and then I went to Cook Junior High. So there was like a split in junior highs where I was at, and then I went to Jersey Village High School. So at that point, we moved from Harvest Bend to Jersey Village at some point in between when I was born in high school, and then I went to Jersey Village.
Awesome. And
Yeah.
you mentioned that as time went on, you were able to make more friends.
Yeah.
Did you find like that community through any clubs or organizations or hobbies?
So I joined, when I was a kid, I did dance classes. I did like ballet, tap, jazz, and I just loved to dance. I also did gymnastics, but I was so scared of getting hurt that I gravitated away from it. I was like, you know, all the flips and stuff, I could do a little bit, but I was always scared. So I was like, forget it, I'm good at dance. So when I went to high school, I tried out for the dance team, and I joined, so it's called Drill Team. I don't know if you know what that is, but we perform at the football games, and we did like competitions, and I felt like that's where I really met people, and I was able to form friendships in school, right? So I had all these friends, like Indian friends that I would see at all the cultural events, right? I would see them at Garba and Diwali celebrations and temple, and, you know, keep in touch over the phone. But like on a daily basis, like where I lived, there was not a big Indian community. So, you know, which was good in a way, because it helped me to make all types of friends, right? And not just kind of stick to one type of, you know, just to my people, right? So I was able to make all types of friends, especially in Drill Team. And so I think that's what got me to, you know, make more friends and be more comfortable talking to everybody, because when you're in an organization like that, you meet a lot of people.
Yes, that's awesome.
Yeah.
How you could make such like a variety of friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I loved dance, so for me that was a lot of fun.
Dance was one of your interests as you were
Mhm.
growing up.
Yeah.
Has that interest ever influenced who you are today?
Yeah, I think so. You know, I've always considered myself, you know, like a dancer. Growing up, I always wanted to like perform, you know, professionally, or be a dance teacher, or be aerobics teacher. I loved working out and stuff too. But so after high school, when I went into college, I danced with like friends and in groups, and we would do like, so there were a lot of these Indian festivals, and you know, my friends and I would always get together and do a dance for one of the festivals, and we loved doing that. And then for friends' weddings and stuff like that. And then when I got out of college, I decided to join, I started learning salsa dancing. My sister took me one day. I was like, okay, this is okay. And I'm the type of person that if I start doing something, I'm like, I gotta be the best at it. So then I like started going salsa dancing every weekend, and taking classes. And then I joined a dance team. So one of the dance teachers, Salsa Eddie, he's like, hey, I'm looking for a partner. Do you want to join our team? And I was like, okay. So I joined his team, and then we ended up, you know, competing around the world. We went to Puerto Rico, where they have the World Salsa Congress, LA, Dallas. And I really enjoyed that. And I did that for a full 2 years, traveling and dancing, but also working, right? And then I got burned out of it. I was like, I can't do both. If I really want to excel in my career, I just also can't, because that was a big, big time commitment, right? We had practice every weekend, during the week, all of that stuff. But, so I love to dance, and my husband loves to dance. So now, you know, like even at home, we dance all the time. We just got married in October. We did a bunch of dances, performances. And so that's something that I'll always do, like, you know, for fun.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, maybe never again professionally, but I will always do it for fun.
On the topic of you and your husband, are you willing to tell us about the story of how you met him?
Yeah. So his name is Suman Kathiwada. He's actually from Nepal. He was born and raised there. He came here for college. He went to Morgan State University. And later, actually, he moved to Houston to come to Rice. He did his PhD in material science. So it's kind of cool because I told him I'm coming here and he was so excited. So I met him through a friend. I met him during COVID. So I think the pandemic started in March of 2020. And we have a mutual friend, a guy that I've known for like 10 years that he knew, I think, for 3-4 years. And he asked me, he's like, are you single? I was like, yes. He's like, do you want to meet one of my friends? I said, no. He goes, you didn't ask me who they were or anything. I said, do you not know what's happening in the world? Like, I thought the world was like, like everybody was gonna die. I thought if I look at somebody, I'd get COVID. Like, I didn't know, right? And my mom had 2 weeks before the shutdown got out of the hospital. She had breast cancer for the second time and had surgery. So she had to get a mastectomy. And, so she's so vulnerable still, right? She's still recovering. And so I was like, I can't go in, meet people at this time. So 2 months later, he asked me again, and I said no. And then he asked me again the third time, and I was like, okay, who is this guy? Because I was like, people try to set me up all the time, so I didn't think anything of it. I was just like, whatever, no. And he's like, well, I don't want to tell you, because if I tell you, you'll go Google him, and then you'll get this preconceived notion, and then it won't work. And I was like, well, forget it, then I really don't want to meet him. And then finally, July, he asked me for the 5th time, and that day I was just like fed up with like everything. I was like, I hadn't gone anywhere, even to like an outdoor patio for like dinner, for drinks, nothing. Like I was very, very like, just very careful because our company never shut down. It never shut down because we're in construction, and so that's essential business. We have a small office, and so we just all wore masks. I mean, we work throughout, but I work with my father. And so he's older and lives with my mom. So I was just very careful. So I had not done anything. And at that time, I was supposed to go on a trip to Cabo, actually, with some friends. And I was so scared. And my mom's like, just go. You've been so good. So I'm like, okay, booking my flight. My passport's expired. Can't get it on time. And that day, the same friend, his name's Reed, he asked me if I want to meet them like at a bar on a patio. And I was like, yeah, you know what, I'm going to come. And so that's how I met him. So it was random, but not random. Like this friend really made an effort because he was like, I just feel like either you guys are going to love each other or hate each other. So he's like, I don't know which way it's going to go. So that first day we ended up hanging out like 3-4 hours, us three, my husband, Reed, and I. And at that time I was like, oh, he's so funny. But I didn't know. And then we all hung out again once in a group. And then he asked me out on a date, and then we just started dating. And because, we were not really seeing a lot of people or anything, we were able to spend a lot of time together, and like we accelerated, I think, faster than most couples would. And, we always say that if we met during non-pandemic, we probably wouldn't be together because he's so busy. He runs his own business. He travels for work. I'm very busy. We're both social. It's like, would we have made that time to really get to know each other? Maybe, but it would have taken a really long time, And I probably would have been like, oh, you travel? Forget it. I always was like, I'm not going to date somebody who travels because then they're not here and, whatnot. So I think it worked out because of the pandemic. So it was kind of a blessing for us because we were able to spend so much time together. And then within a year, a little over a year, he proposed and we got engaged. So that's how we met.
That's an amazing story, and it's amazing how time and luck were on your side. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yes, and moving on to career. You mentioned in the initial survey that you started your first job at a dry cleaners at age 15. Could you tell me how this experience has shaped your work ethic and your approach to professional responsibilities throughout your life?
So you mentioned growing up, we didn't have a lot of money. My parents were, my mom was working 2 jobs. My dad was traveling for work. And, it's like I never had money to get little things for myself, right? Because everything was only whatever is necessity. And I was like, you know what, I wanna work. I saw my parents working hard, I was like, I want a job. And then some family friend gave me a job at a dry cleaners, like I don't even think I was old enough to work at that time. So, I was like, I just, you know, I wanted to have some extra money for myself. I was like, I'm gonna work for myself. And ever since then, I've worked my entire life, except a few years in college where I was really trying to focus on school and studies. But, you know, from there, I worked all the way up to college. Like after the dry cleaners, as soon as I was like legally allowed to work, I worked at Subway. My first like real job, I was a sandwich artist, that's what it said. Then I went to Denny's, I was a hostess there. They promoted me to be a waitress. After the first day, I quit because I was so bad at it. And then went to Logan's Roadhouse. I was a hostess there, so those are all down like right near 290 next to each other. And so I stayed like kind of in the food industry there, whatever I could get as a teenager. And then when I went to college, I did internships, worked at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, and I did a few other little jobs. Took some time off, and then ever since then I've worked. So I think it taught me, you know, how to work hard and the value of money, and I think my parents always taught me that growing up, right? And then I've obviously experienced it firsthand. So I think, you know, part of it, you know, I think was a good experience for me because now, you know, I know the value of like, you know, working hard. I know the value of money and saving also, right? So.
That's very good. And you also mentioned that you received your Bachelor's of Business Administration in Finance at the University of Texas at Austin.
Yeah.
What were some significant academic or extracurricular activities that you were involved in at your time there?
So, so I started out actually in engineering the first year, and I hated it. And so I transferred to business the second year. And then I started getting more involved. So I joined a service sorority, and it was called OPA, Omega Phi Alpha. And the reason I joined is I had a couple friends who were like, hey, I'm joining the sorority. And so it was basically all Asian Americans in the sorority. It was something that it was nice, so I felt like, you know, I had a sense of community there. And we did like community work, but we also did, you know, we had events together and dinners and stuff like that. And it was like, I think 30, 35 of us. So that was really good because I was able to make friendships, and I was also able to give back to the community. And I was also, from the business school side, I was part of this organization called MIS Connects. So MIS, like nobody really talks about that anymore, but back then it was a huge, like a major that everybody was majoring in. It was management information systems, and we did HTML coding, and so there was a group of us from the business school that went to local junior highs, and we taught kids you know, how to do HTML back in the day. So that was cool. That was something different that I got to do. And then I did a study abroad in London. I went to LSE, it was London School of Economics and Political Science. So I just did one full summer there, which I really wish I did like a semester, because that was probably, I would have to say, one of the best experiences I've had like in my life. Because it's something like going to college, you know, from living at home all my life. I mean, Austin, it's not that far, but that was hard, right? Like going somewhere where you don't know anybody, and you know anybody. And then trying to make friends, but then going to another country. So I went there not knowing anybody who was going to be part of the group or anything, and I just made friends there from all over the world. And I met people from all different cultures. So it was a cool experience because, you know, I found my love to travel. So the friends that we made, we would all travel on the weekends together. So we would take time and we would go to Brussels and Edinburgh, and I think we went to Amsterdam. And so we did a lot of other things, and it just opened my eyes to so many cultures. So I think it's something that everybody should do at some point in their life, because it's just a different experience that you're not going to get here. Even if you go to school somewhere else, you're not going to get it as same as going out abroad.
Yeah.
And going somewhere there. Yeah.
That sounds like a very life-changing experience.
It was super fun. So you should do one. If you can.
I
do
will
something,
look
study abroad.
Yes, ma'am. In any way, did those experiences contribute to your current skill set or shape your career trajectory?
Yeah, I think so, especially with the study abroad, because I really learned my, passion to travel, and so I love to, travel now. And and it also, all those organizations help me like develop my own personality and my leadership and learning to work with people in groups and, all of those like life skills that you really need when you go work out in the real world. So, I think a lot of that has helped me, after college and where I'm at now in my life.
Yeah.
For sure.
Were there any particular challenges or obstacles that you faced during college?
I think one of the biggest things was, my figuring out what I wanted to do. So I think part of me went to engineering, and I can't remember exactly because my dad was an engineer, he was a civil engineer. And then, it's like, did I really not like engineering, or is it because it was the furthest building from my dorm, the classes were at 8 a.m., they made us survey the land in the rain. I mean, it was just awful. So then when I'm like, okay, I'm gonna change majors, my parents are like, what? Like, that's not allowed, like, that's unheard of, right? You pick something and you stick with it. And so I think that was a big challenge, is like, okay, what am I gonna do next? Where do I wanna go? Okay, I don't wanna do engineering, done. I don't wanna do science, so, what else, is good? And I was like, I think I'd be good at business. But trying to explain that to them and why I'm, changing, because they're like, oh no, you should do engineering or medical or, something in science. Why do you want to do business? And it's like, okay, well, so that was a challenge for me. I think that was definitely a challenge for me.
How did you overcome that challenge?
So one of the big things is my sister, who's 8 years older than me, she was always very helpful. So, I talked to her and she helped talk to my parents. And, was like, look, this is where I'm at now, things change. And I think, her helping me and paving that path, from where she was, and she also had changed along the way. I think that helped a lot, and she was able to help me out with that.
Yes. Looking back on your time at UT Austin, is there any advice that you would give to current or prospective students on top of the studying abroad who are considering pursuing the same or like a similar career to you?
I would say try to join different organizations where you meet different types of people. Because I think in college that's when you figure out who you are, and if you, and I think of course it's good to have your different groups of friends and stuff, but and especially within your community, but if you only stick within your community, you don't really get to learn, a variety of things. So, my advice is like, of course, like studies are very important, but also join the organizations where you can meet different types of people and learn different things, because you may learn something different that you're interested in that you didn't realize before, right? So being open-minded, right? And going outside your comfort zone, which is the hardest thing to do. And that was very hard for me, but the more I would do that, the more people I meet and the more I learn about myself. So, and the study abroad is one of those things, right? That you go beyond your comfort zone, but I think all of those things are important. And doing some type of internship, and if you go and work for your very, very first time straight out of college, you're gonna have a hard time. Like, you gotta have, at some point, if you didn't work as in high school or in college, do some type of internship in the summer, do something, because that will prepare you for, for your first job. It'll give you a step up versus just going fresh out. So I think getting those experiences while you're in college is very helpful, because once you're in the real world, there's not much assistance after that.
Yeah. Do you remember the names of the places where you interned?
So I did, I interned at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, and then I did a internship at the company that I ended up working for. which is Huron Consulting Group.
Awesome. And I also saw in one of the files that you shared that you participated in the Millennium 3 Education Leadership Program. Could you tell me more about that?
So that was something my cousin and I did together. It was actually in Dallas. It was based in Dallas. And we went, it was like every other weekend we went to Dallas for this thing. And it was, I don't feel like it was like really a leadership program. It was more like, you know how like Tony Robbins has these like weekend seminar things, like find the truth to yourself, empowering yourself. It was kind of like that, where you got into groups and they put you in different situations to, you know, figure out how do you deal with these situations, like how do you deal with your real emotions. And it's more about like self-improvement and self-learning more than leadership. But I think, you know, that also helps with leadership in general, but it was an amazing experience. The coaches I had there, you know, they influenced me, you know, long term, and I think that it was a cool program. I actually Googled it the other day, and I don't think it exists anymore, which is sad.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
How did it influence your leadership today as vice president?
I don't think that itself directly influenced me in that way. I think it helped me like grow and build self-confidence, because it talks a lot, and it dealt a lot with people's insecurities and self-confidence issues, and I think that helped me as I grew to be older, and which in turn then, you know, helps me with where I'm at now.
Yes.
Yeah.
As you were growing up, were there any like mentors or influential figures who played a role in guiding your career progression?
My parents for sure, because, you know, their hard work ethic, always seeing them work hard, you know, and they always instilled in me like work hard, make good grades, you know, those are the important things. But also my sister. So I always looked up to her, and I still do to this day. She helped raise me, and her being 8 years older, you know, I always kind of like, you know, wanted to do everything she did and follow in her footsteps. And like when she also went to UT, which is one of the reasons why I went to UT. And I would go visit her. I would take a Greyhound bus and go visit her. And then when she was in med school in San Antonio, I'd go visit her. And I think, you know, being around her and her friends and being around people older than me, I felt like I learned a lot more faster than other people my age. And she was always helpful, right? She guided me through, okay, what should I do for college? You know, how do I do this? You know, so, and still to this day, she's slightly like a mother figure to me because of her helping raise me and the age difference. But I think she was definitely, you know, probably the biggest mentor who has affected, you know, where I am today.
Yes.
And I don't thank her enough for that, which I should.
Yes. So after your first internships, what was your first business job?
So when I graduated college at the business school at UT they're really good at getting companies together. They're good at interviewing process. They're good at training the students on what to do. You can take courses on interviewing and stuff like that. So I had interviewed for quite a few jobs, and I surprisingly had 5 job offers. And the market was good at that time too. So it's 2004, you know, things crashed in 2008. At that time, you know, things were hot. I had an offer for investment banking, a financial advisor, a couple other things in finance, but I ended up going with Huron Consulting Group. And so that is the first official job that I had out of college, and I was there for 3.5 years. So, and it was a great experience. It was definitely a great experience. And the other ones, you know, the other jobs would have been great too, but I was like, and Huron wasn't giving me the most money, but I was like, I think this is where I'm gonna get the experience that I wanna get. And I did. I traveled the whole time in consulting. You know, I would have a car pick me up at 4 a.m. on Mondays. I'd get home at like 10 on Fridays. Some days work through the weekends. after a while, it got really exhausting. At first, it was like, oh, it's fun. I get free miles and, you know, hotel points and free dinners, and I'm like, okay, it's not fun anymore. But it was a cool experience. So like, one of my biggest clients was United Airlines when they were going through, right before the merger with Continental, so there was a bankruptcy group, so we were there. There was actually quite a few groups of consultants there, but we were at their headquarters, which is right outside of Chicago in the suburb. So I worked at United Airlines for almost a year, and then Fannie Mae, which was also in Chicago, their headquarters, worked there for about 6 months. They were going through an SEC investigation. So within Huron Consulting Group, so what they do is when you're first straight out of college, they put you in different groups. So you learn a variety of different types of consulting. So I was like in the energy group, then corporate bankruptcy, and then forensic accounting. So forensic accounting is like SEC investigations, you know, going in and, you know, reading documents, interviewing people and stuff like that. And another big client of mine was Zales Diamond Company, and at that time they were going through an SEC investigation too. So it was pretty cool because I worked with a lot of C-suite people. And so I got very good experience working there.
Did you have a favorite out of those groups that you mentioned?
I think corporate bankruptcy, just because working at United Airlines was a really cool experience. Yeah.
And how did you progress from that to your current role as Vice President of TDK?
So I really got sick of traveling, and I was like, I don't know what to do. And I think I was talking to my dad, and I was like, I don't know what to do. And he's like, well, maybe you can come work for me. I was like, in construction? No, absolutely not. And then I was like looking, you know, I was like, okay, maybe I'll do financial, you know, go do an investment banker, or financial analysis. And then like, wait, I'm just gonna work the same amount. I was like, I can't figure out what I really wanna do. And then I was like, okay, Dad, maybe let's see, let me try it out. And he's like, no, I don't think you'll like it. Forget it. So we went back and forth, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna just try it. So I go to my company, and I go to my boss, and he's like, oh no, you can't leave, and he gave me a $10,000 raise. So I stayed. At that time, my dad was gonna start me way lower, so I was like, you know, because he was still, you know, his business was still like up and going and stuff like that. So I stayed, and then the second time, you know, they were like, oh no, we'll give you this. We won't make you travel. But then finally I was like, no, I want to do something different. And I love the company. So nothing with the company, nothing with the people. I just wanted a change. And so I was like, okay, I'll take a chance. So I started working with my dad in 2008. So 4 years after graduating from college. And that's how I ended up with my father. And then from there, you know, I became vice president. So I started it's called TDK Construction. I started there in 2008. So this is my 16th year now. And when I started there, my dad was like, he was doing he didn't have branding, he didn't have software. I mean, he was doing everything by hand. So they would take like blueprints, like big blueprints, fold them, put them in like manila folders, and or mail them to subcontractors to get bids, to get pricing. And he was doing everything by ruler and, you know, pencil and pen, paper, and like they didn't have an email address, they didn't have a website, there was no logo. So like if you see construction signs when you drive around, it would say TDK, one would be blue, one would be like red in a different font. So like they didn't know what, he didn't know what branding was. He didn't understand, the business side of it in that sense, right? Like my dad is super smart. He, now he's very successful. But the good thing is, like, if I had gone into working with my dad straight from college, we might have not have grown as much as I think that we have grown, because when I came in, I brought in all my business experience, because everything I learned, I was like, oh my God, I can make Excel spreadsheets for all this. I got a website made. I got an email for us, and I got everybody, their own email address that they didn't have before. I made a logo, business cards. I created a whole server system and folders so people can save things. I got a software that's called PlanSwift to do takeoffs. So, the whole first year I focused on modernizing the company while still learning construction also, because I knew zero about construction when I came in. Which I was like, okay, I can learn it, whatever. But I was like, we need to work on these things. So the first year I was very focused on bringing in what experience I have to help the company and then start learning the construction. And everything I learned was on the job through my dad. I ended up taking 2 classes, 2 semesters at U of H in their construction management program. I don't think that helped much because real life experience really is much better than school, which is why also even coming from a great business school, I don't think that the things that I learned there would have helped with the construction company. I think it's because of working at Huron. Those skill sets I was able to bring into TDK. So I came in as a project manager. My salary was way lower than consulting because at that time consulting was paying a lot. And I came in a lot lower, but I was like, it's okay, I'm willing to learn the business, all that. So the first 2-3 years, after that, I was running 5-6 projects at a time, going to client meetings, bidding projects with my dad, helping hire employees, all that stuff. And then I, transferred into the vice president role just after a few years. So it's been a good journey. And now we're in the process of transitioning the business to me. So my dad's 78 years old. He says he's never going to retire, but at some point he's going to have to. So we're working on that right now. So this is the year where we're doing like a business valuation. We're working with the advisor and CPA, and because there's so many logistics involved on transferring the business and shares and all of that stuff. So he's sole owner right now. But my aspirations to take over this business and make it a women-owned minority business, which will probably be one of the first, because I've researched this, one of the first big Indian, Asian American, women-owned construction companies. So that'll be exciting when that
Yes,
happens.
it'll be very unique.
But yeah, it's been a long journey to get to where I am now.
Yes.
For sure.
It's also fantastic how you could use your previous skills to completely level up your father's
Mhm.
company.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Could you tell me about what your primary responsibilities and duties are right now as the vice president?
So right now I basically, manage operations, which means manage everything. So, I oversee all the employees, which includes project managers, superintendents, the accountant, and even subcontractors and stuff. I also run projects. So whatever the big projects are that I feel are very detail oriented and there's a lot at stake, I just run them myself. And I'll have people help me, but I run them myself. And then I work with, I do all the invoicing, sign the checks, I make sure who are we gonna pay. I'm also HR. I interview for employees for new jobs. And then I also work on company analysis and meeting new clients, networking, finding new softwares. So really, because the thing is, when you have a small business, especially a family-owned business, you end up doing a little bit of everything. And so eventually my goal is not to be doing everything, slowly hiring people to do some of the, more of the project-based stuff so I can be more, just working with clients and sales and networking. But at this point, I'm involved in everything, which at some point, if you want to run business, you have to know every part of the business. So this is something that no matter what, I would have to do, right? Because if I don't know what's happening in one thing, I need to understand it, right? So I learned QuickBooks. I understand all the accounting software. Even though that's not what I'm going to be doing every day or my profession, I have to know it and understand it. I have to know and understand how to do a takeoff and run a project and all of that stuff. So, so right now it's I'm very heavily involved in day-to-day everything operations.
Yes, this
Yeah.
seems like you have a lot on your hand. It seems to be a little stressful sometimes. How do
It
you
is.
like manage time between work and family or other hobbies?
Yeah, it is hard, but I think, like, for me, I'm very big on balance. Like, because the thing is, like, if I work, like, let's say 100 hours a week and I don't do anything else, I won't even be productive those 100 hours. So what's the point, right?
Yeah.
So, like, for me, like, my health is very important. So I want to work out 3 to 4 times a week. It's important to keep relationships with my friends. It's important for me to sleep. I like to sleep 8 to 9 hours a night. For me, I need that to rejuvenate. And so what my thing is, when I'm at the office, I'm laser focused. I don't kind of diddly-daddly around. Like, okay, when I'm working, I'm working. So that way, when I'm not working, I'm not working. So that kind of thing. And that's how I kind of balance out, the other things that I want to do in life. Is just by being focused when you're at work, and when you're not at work, being focused on whatever else you're doing. But I do work in the evenings and weekends too, when I need to. And I do more of my like deep thinking and more of my business planning type of stuff when I'm at home, because it's easier to do that when there's not so many people around and stuff like that. So I hope to find more balance as time goes on, as I hire, more people on the team. That would be nice, but right now I still think I have a decently good balance. But I put that on myself. I'm going to have that balance. So.
Yes, you are
Yeah.
incredibly hardworking. Could you share like a significant accomplishment or project that you're proud of during your time at TDK Construction?
So I have a project that just finished 2 weeks ago and opened. It's called the Eternal Gandhi Museum of Houston. It's the first Gandhi museum in all of America. It took 2 years for construction because there's a board of directors that I work with, and we were, designing and evolving as construction was going on, because they wanted it to be the perfect, museum, right? And so it's, sometimes when you're doing just a project, it's like, okay, it's done, right? But this is like we're designing in the process. It was definitely, I think, one of my favorite projects that I've worked on, and the most significant, because it really was like true to my heart. Like, I worked on it. I did so much just out of my personal self, not even with work, right? I helped with charity events. I helped with their education committee. I worked with the owner. I did a lot of things on my free time. And to me, that was like, okay, that's my volunteering for the project, for the cause. But that's one of the best projects that I've worked on, and the people that I worked with, the board of directors who, had this vision. They're amazing to work with, and I'm still, working with them. The architects, the museum designers, but it's something that, historically will be, that everybody will always remember. So, the groundbreaking ceremony, that was 2 years ago. We had Congressman Al Green and Mayor Turner. And then Congressman Al Green, he granted $3.2 million for the museum. And so we had a dinner reception honoring him. And in that reception, the board of directors asked me to do a presentation. So I did a presentation, on whatever the construction progress was, and and then kind of just, honoring the job and everybody there. And so it was a really cool experience for me, because I hadn't presented since in my consulting days, right? So it was a cool experience. So it's been a lot of community involvement, which has brought me back to my roots a little bit, so that's really nice. And we have the grand opening ceremony. So they had a soft opening 2 weeks ago, and the grand opening ceremony is October 2nd. So I'm pretty excited for that.
Yes,
That's gonna be a big event, but it's one of my favorite projects. And I have so many that I'm, proud of, but this is one of the big ones. And my dad has always been big in the community, so he's done a lot of work for different temples. We've built, temples ground up, we build meditation centers, and so forth. So it's pretty cool. And because of this project and working with the board of directors, they enjoyed working with us, that they're giving us opportunity for another project, which I have a second interview for today, right after this. I'm going there. So it's good, right? It's like when you work with the community and you work well with them, you get more opportunities, right? Without even asking for it. You're doing what, you're meant to do, and, you get rewarded for that. So it's you should go see it one day. It's absolutely amazing. So, and the museum doesn't talk just about Gandhi, it talks about all the leaders who, he had, he left impression on, and, Martin Luther King, and, Harriet Tubman, and it's Nelson Mandela, and it's pretty cool. You'll see half the museum's about him, and then half is everybody who followed in his footsteps. So it's really cool, and it's meant for everyone, all cultures, to come there and, experience the museum. It's not just for the Indian community, it's for everybody.
That does sound very
Yeah.
cool. I'll have to get my friends to come with me to see
Yes,
it.
you have to go.
Yes.
It's a very good experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you did put in a lot of work to lead your team and that project to success. How has your cultural background influenced your leadership style or management approach within your company?
I think, so like I said, my dad, he always wanted to do a lot of work for the community, right? And so I think that, because of his influence, I've become that way, and I'm like, oh yeah, I want to do this community project. And I think that's influenced the type of work that we do and what TDK is known for, right? Because people know us in the community. And that's nice, right? So that's helped me become more like, and it's like, feels like more like family oriented when I work in these projects. And so that's nice, coming from a small family business and working with other people where it feels like you're working with like family itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
What are, including what you mentioned earlier, what are some more of your future goals or aspirations for the company?
So one is, transition, take over the company, make it a women minority-owned business. But I also want to, in the past we've done a lot of big gas stations and truck stops and shopping centers, and I want to evolve more into what we've done the last few years. So like doing special projects like the museum. I would like to start doing more unique work versus just doing like, more cookie cutter stuff. And I think I enjoy that because there's more passion involved in that. And so my goal is to like find more unique jobs like that, right? What are other museums that are being built? What are other centers that community centers that people need? Because those are the type of projects that I feel like I enjoy working on. And so, instead of working on like, 10, 12 very small projects, I'd rather work on like 3 or 4 big projects that are meaningful. And so that's kind of what I'm, going towards doing.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice that you would like to give to young Asian American women who are aspiring to enter the same like male-dominated career field as you?
Yeah, so it, when I first started in construction, I was like, oh my God, men are gonna be mean, and, because everyone's like, oh, you're gonna go work in this male-dominated industry. But really, like, in my 16 years, I haven't, there's only been a few minor instances where I feel like, I felt like somebody was being like degrading towards me because I'm a woman or a minority or I look younger than my age, but it's so minor that I don't even remember them. Like, I'm actually very surprised. Like, people have been very respectful, and I think it's like, if you had the knowledge of whatever industry you're working in, where there's construction or any other male-dominated industry, people are gonna respect you, right? And so that's the thing. Like, if you're gonna work in a male-dominated industry, make sure you understand, you have the knowledge, however it is, going to get real-life experiences, going and studying, it doesn't have to be specifically education. It could be anything, to get that experience. But you know, I think that's important. So, you know, having knowledge in what you're doing, being confident. And I think a lot of times, like, women are like, oh, because I'm a woman, you know, somebody might need, but if you, you know, if you protrude that, you know, like, sense of feeling, then that may happen to you, right? So if you know, so it's like one of those things that I never really thought about and never really affected me. So, you know, I think it's knowledge and being confident that don't even, like, if you don't look at yourself as different, then other people won't, right? So
yeah.
that's my take on that.
Yes. On top of knowledge and confidence, are there any other skills or qualities that you think are crucial for overcoming those barriers and becoming successful like you are?
I think, you know, always having like some type of self-help or mentoring. That is very important. And I've realized that in the last like year or 2 years maybe. Because I was kind of stagnant with the career because, you know, it's like I'm working with my dad, so it's like we have a small company, whereas I'm not learning new things, right? Whereas when you work in a big company, like a corporate company, you're constantly meeting new types of people and learning new things, right? But when you're the top, like when you're the boss, you're not necessarily learning new things just by work, right? So I think going out there and joining organizations, getting mentorship, right? So I had a coach for 2-3 years, which was very helpful, who I met with every week. And she coached me not just on work, but life experiences and how to deal with things, and, you know, all of that stuff is important, I think, and I think that really helps. Just recently, I think like 5 months ago, I joined a CEO roundtable. So there's a company, or there's a Silver Fox Advisors as a group. One of my friends invited me to it, and they were like, hey, do you want to join a CEO roundtable? And it's basically like CEOs from different companies that are like the same size and revenue as you comparably, but different fields, no competitors, and we meet once a month. And I found that just very rewarding and very helpful, because we all talk about our issues, right? And it's like a safe space. So we talk about, okay, I have this issue, what do you think I should do? Or we talk about, you know, like, okay, I'm going through this thing, and then people give advice. You know, we kind of go around, and every time we talk about what was our biggest personal accomplishment and business accomplishment, what are the things that we're working on, have we met our goals that we said we were going to work on last month, or do we need help with them? So it's about 8 of us, and so stuff like that, I think you need to have things outside of your business that are going to help you grow, because you're only going to grow so much within the business. So I think having things like that, so the CEO Roundtable is one of them. I also joined, I think about 2 years ago, this organization called Crew. It's mostly women, men are allowed, but it's all women. And it's a real estate organization, so there's women from construction, there's developers, real estate, property management, tax and title, anything involved in the commercial real estate industry. And I've met so many people through that. And I've gotten very involved in that. And so I'm like part of special events committee, the groundbreakers committee, and then because I was so involved, the past president asked me to be part of the nominating committee to nominate the next board of directors and president and secretary and all of that. So that involvement has really helped me. So, you know, just in the last year, just few things, you know, CEO Roundtable, Crew, I just joined National Association of Women in Construction. I just went to one meeting, so I plan to get involved, but this is very new. And then with Crew, actually, so they have a leadership program. So they have 2 a year. It's in Atlanta this year. It's in September, middle of September, and I actually got a scholarship for it. So I'm super excited to go to that. It's a 2-day leadership conference. I'm hoping that will be another avenue where I learn leadership skills that I can implement, you know, back at work. So I think it's good to have those extracurricular activities even as an adult, not just like in college, right?
Yeah.
Because when you become an adult, people don't think about doing those extra things, you know, so It's good. It's good. Yeah.
Do you have any other community involvements beyond what we've previously discussed?
Let's see. So Crew, CO Roundtable, and then NAWIC. I think that's it. I think all those itself keep me pretty involved. So, Crew, it's usually, at least once a week we have something that's going on. And so that just keeps me involved. And then I've been helping with charity events for the Eternal Gandhi Museum. So that's also kept me pretty busy. So between, those two, I've stayed quite busy. Yeah.
So we've basically covered all of the points and questions that I've already prepared, but are there any other things that you would like to share?
So something about the company that I didn't mention is, and it's a cool story. My dad, when I was 11 years old, he had gone to India, and in India they go to these fortune tellers, that read your, what is your future going to be, whatnot. And so the guy told my dad that your youngest daughter will bring you good luck and fortune. And so when he came back to America a few years later, he named the company after me. So TDK stands for Tina Dhansukh Khatri, which has my name in it, but also has his name. So in our culture, we take the wife and the kids take the father's first and last name. It's crazy. So all three of us women, my sister, mom, and I, all have my dad's name as our middle name and last name. And so, he named the company when I was 11 years old with no intention of working there, right? I mean, even now, even after graduating college, I went into consulting, right? So it's kind of ironic and cool at the same time that, I ended up working here, not planned. And then, it's named TDK. And this past Saturday was the 30-year anniversary. So August 26th was 30 years in making. Wanted to have a big party, but my dad's like, no, I don't want anything. And then I got busy, but I'm still planning on doing something later this year, beginning of next year. And so that'll be cool. And we're going to India in December. I've been to India since I was 5. So it will be a very, probably a culture shock for me after being, here, not being in India for 36 years. So it'll be pretty awesome to go there. And then at the tail end, we're gonna go to Nepal for a few days to see where my husband is from, so.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
I
So
hope
it'll be
this
pretty
celebration's
exciting.
good.
So a lot of fun things happening and happening at the same time, so.
Yeah. Would
Yeah.
you say that you're attached to or detached from your heritage living in the U.S.?
I think I still have an attachment, but I think there's a part of detachment, right? Because now I'm so, immersed in the American culture and all of that, right? But I still have a pretty good attachment, as in, I still celebrate the holidays with my family, Diwali, Janmashtami, we, go to the temple, and especially now that since we've been doing a lot of work with the community, I'm feeling more attached than even before, right? It's like a reattachment, and we wear Indian clothes all the time, eat Indian food. Luckily, because I work with my dad, my mom sends food every day, or once a week, she'll send a bunch of food, Indian food, with my dad and my husband and I eat it throughout the week. So even at 41 years old, my mom is still sending me food, but it's that's the culture, right? Right, my mom loves to cook and she loves to feed and provide for the children and stuff like that. So, I would say that I'm more attached probably to the culture than I have been ever in my life. More than, maybe when I was a kid, but this is probably the most I've been attached, especially because of the community projects too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your culture
Yeah.
sounds very loving and caring. Does your upbringing contribute to your ability to connect with other people, like business-wise or just in general?
So I think, my upbringing when it comes to college and after, I think it helps me with business and, with communicating and going to the next level and so forth. Because I think you know, part of me is like, I didn't have a bad childhood, you know, but I feel like I wasn't a happy kid, but I think that was just within me, right? And so a lot of those years, I don't remember much, except that I hated going to school, and going to Baskin Robbins was the one thing I enjoyed to do, right? So, you know, like my upbringing, like there's so much that I remember in that. I remember more of like the recent years, you know, but having my sister there is probably been the most helpful things, because throughout I always kind of followed her in her footsteps, and she's very successful, and I mean, she's doing great, and she's, you know, she's done great throughout her life, so it's been nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything more that you would like to share we haven't covered yet?
I don't think so. I think that's, you know, pretty much everything about, yeah.
Yeah. Well, your journey was very inspiring, and I appreciate your openness in discussing your career progression, college memories, and personal life. Thank you once again for your valuable time and for sharing your story with us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. This was fun.